Make sure you don't get stung, because today we're talking about Wasp the Warmaiden in Guards of Atlantis. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Jordan.
And this is Optimal Play. This is the third in our series of Guards of Atlantis character discussions.
Right.
We don't purport to be experts. I like to think of this style of video as more like we're sharing our discovery and our exploration with you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly not experts.
So,
but learning.
Yeah. And we're learning. I like to think we're learning quick. We've been playing a decent amount.
Yeah, we've been playing a good amount.
Yeah. It can always be more.
Right.
So yeah, I would love to see comments. Any thoughts that you have, any whether they're corrections or compliments or things we didn't think of, strategies that you like to use when you play with Wasp, let us know in the comments and like the video while you're down there. Why not? With that, want to tell us about Wasp the Warmaiden?
Sure. So Wasp the Warmaiden is a 1-star hero, which relates to complexity.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we'll read this little bit of flavor text here.
Yeah, why not?
As all heiresses to the throne of the Gilded Empire, Wasp was exiled from the palace as soon as she could hold a dagger. She needs to learn to control her powers before she can face the ultimate challenge and claim her birthright.
It's funny that her flavor has to do with like learning to control her powers, because I feel like that is the essence of Guards of Atlantis itself.
Right. And I also think Wasp looks a lot, and her powers are similar to Storm from X-Men. Isn't that a thing? I mean, I'm not a huge X-Men guy, but isn't that a thing where Storm has to control her powers?
I think it is. So, I'm also not a big X-Men guy.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
But I'd buy that.
But yeah, you can think of Wasp as Storm from the X-Men in terms of she has a lot of storm-based powers,
right.
Lightning and wind and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she's got some stats here. Looks like she's a pretty in the middle character. Down the middle.
According to all the kind of like stat bars that she gets, really between 3 and 5 out of 8 on everything.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we agree with those as we go. I have definitely found at times that as I play a character, then I look back at their stats and I'm like, really? Like,
interesting. Okay.
2 attack? Like, I just won by slaughtering 3 heroes,
Yeah, sure.
But, yeah. And then she...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
She's got some other effects here. She's
a
long-range hero, an anti-range hero. That has to do with her green protection cards.
Mm-hmm.
She can discard cards from other heroes, and she has anti-skill effects that make it so other heroes cannot perform skill actions.
I like that term, anti-skill. It's like you like,
she's very anti.
Just try to get good with Wasp. Like, skill won't matter.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, it looks like she's kind of controlling because anti-skill, anti-range, and discard effects. So lots of like saying no to your opponents.
And I think that's accurate to my experience with playing with her. Is that she's of the characters that I've played, which are mostly the 1-star characters so far. I've just been dabbling in some of the 2s, but she's one of the most focused on. She like stays put and manipulates the positions of other people, whether they're moving around her or towards her, or is she the one? I know we'll look at it closer in a second, but is she the one that puts up the like area that people can't move in or out
static
of?
Area,
yeah. And so that's what stands out to me is her movement manipulation and limitation control in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna dive into the gold card.
Go for it.
She's got a nice quick gold card, the Dazzling Dagger. Which has initiative 12. It also has 2 shields and 1 boot on it. It is a 3 power basic attack, which a lot of gold cards don't have 3.
That's true.
So
a lot of 2s.
Yeah. Target a unit adjacent to you. After the attack, cancel active effects on skill cards of enemy heroes adjacent to you. This turn, enemy heroes adjacent to you cannot perform skill actions. So it's honestly a pretty medium attack. A lot of basic attacks can be defended by anything, but this 3, like if you upgrade your attack a little bit to 4 or 5, it's pretty substantial. And then I have found the rest of this text canceling active skill effects and preventing skill actions to be really hit or miss. I don't know. Have you played much with Wasp?
I've played a few games with Wasp. It is hit or miss unless you really know your opponent's character.
Right.
Because if you know that they're in a position where they really want to use this skill and you can time this to cancel that skill and it's an important skill for them, it's really valuable. But oftentimes you're playing this more because you need to get an attack off.
Yes.
And then in that case, the rest of the effect often will have no impact on the game.
Right. And the Yeah, it's like cancel active effects. So canceling active effects would mean something they played previously.
Correct.
Right. So this is a good card for kind of the middle of the round, like turn 2 or 3. If you play this round 1, you're likely to go first and not cancel anything. Although you could prevent their skill.
You could prevent their skill, right? But yes, you're right.
And then kind of my other thought on this that's interesting that I don't even know if I've ever taken advantage of this, but you could, is that this can target a minion, and then it still cancels active skills on heroes adjacent to you.
Right.
Right?
And she has a lot of effects like that, where she'll attack something and then have some effect on heroes that are not the target of her attack explicitly.
Right. Yeah. So again, that's just positioning matters. It's a situation that you need to orchestrate to be next to a minion and an enemy hero.
Yeah.
And not be about to die.
Right. Exactly. And not be about to die. That's what I was about to say. It's kind of difficult to put yourself in that position.
Yep. Want to give a static barrier?
Sure. So static barrier is Wasp's basic skill, her silver card. It's an 11 initiative, so usually these are slow cards. Right. It's quite fast. With 2 defense and 2 radius. And it says enemy units in radius cannot move or fast travel out of radius. Enemy units outside the radius cannot move or fast travel into the radius. So she creates this sort of 2 hex radius wherein no enemies can enter or leave.
Right. This is pretty cool. I think this is one of the splashier silver cards that I've seen.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's more exciting when it goes off. You know, it's like, especially if the best time to use this, in my opinion, is a push has just occurred, someone is behind you or right next to you, and they're trying to run to where the push zone is.
Right.
And you can stop them from running, especially if they're going to use like their red card to move 5 or something. You can say, no, waste that. That's the best.
Interesting.
The best use for me.
Yeah. No, that is super satisfying. I think that it can. It's pretty. This one is actually, I think, a lot. Or what am I saying? Especially compared to other silvers, it's pretty easy to at least just drop it and have the enemies have to change their plans.
Yeah.
Like it's drawing this big circle that no enemy can move through in or out. It has the potential to just, they can no longer kill the minion that they were planning to hit. You know, like Tiger Claw or someone who needed to move 1 space and hit a minion and now can't. Or even just movement actions within the battle zone. Like I think you gave a great example, but I think that this like almost always screws with your opponents in a way that makes it a card you should play almost every round.
Yeah, I think that's right. It definitely can screw with your opponents, and it's interesting because it doesn't affect only move actions, right? It would also affect Tiger Claw's yellow attack.
I think so, right? Yeah, how is it worded?
It says move. It doesn't say move actions.
Yeah. So
it would even impact that.
Tiger Claw that needs to move through a minion in order to kill it with Tiger Claw's gold card anyway.
Right.
This could essentially block that from working.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, it's it causes a lot of chaos, and I have found that when I throw up the static barrier, sometimes it has effects that I'm happy about, but I totally did not intend.
Totally.
I didn't realize it would interact with their plan in that way.
Creating problems your opponents have to solve is part of the game, and you can do it at a very low cost, very easily with this card. So.
For sure. The one other thing I'll point out about it, and we'll have to keep an eye out when we look at the upgrades for what cards it means she's taking if she upgrades her radius. But it's really interesting what upgrading radius does to this. Yeah. Because increasing the size of that circle does not necessarily make it better. Right. If anything, I find that it makes it a little harder to use well. If it's a 3 radius, then you're talking about interfering with enemies that are more than 3 away from you or are trying to leave the area within 3 of you. And that's just a lot less common than 2 of you.
Yeah, I actually think it makes it worse. Straight up worse to upgrade your radius. Right.
Yeah, so we'll have to circle back to that when we see what card does choosing that card upgrades your radius, making her silver worse. Right. Her red card, though, her not basic attack, but her kind of strong attack, is Shock. It's an 8 initiative card with 6 defense and 4 movement on it. It attacks for 5, says target a unit adjacent to you. Before the attack, up to 1 enemy hero adjacent to you except the target discards a card if able. Mm-hmm. So you were pointing this out, that this is kind of on theme with Dazzling Dagger, where both of these would like you to have a hero. Well, No,
two enemies, just two enemies.
Dazzling Dagger, you could target the hero, and then its secondary effects also apply to that hero. Right. Shock, though. Yeah, because Dazzling Dagger, after the attack, it affects all heroes adjacent to you.
Okay, right. Sorry, yes.
Versus Shock specifically wants you to target something other than a hero that is also adjacent to you.
Right.
Pretty hard to line up.
Right. But valuable. I mean, getting an attack and a discard out of one card is really great value.
For sure. That's a lot of the time how you kill opposing heroes is get 2-for-1s like that.
Right.
Even if they're on two different heroes or something.
Or, you're advancing both victory conditions. If you kill a minion and discard a hero's card, great.
Yeah, good point. And then, it's just kind of, if you can't line that up, it's just a melee attack at 5 strength, which is a pretty mediocre red card. So, and 8 speed is
mediocre too.
I feel like it's pretty medium, I guess, for a red. Maybe.
I feel like reds go 8 to 10 or something like that.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they're double digits. I feel like that's reserved for gold and then specific things like her silver.
Okay, you might be right. Yeah.
But like 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
So I like it. It's tricky, but we'll see some more ways to get enemy heroes adjacent to you to help line this up.
Right. And in fact, one way is with Lift Up, her basic skill, or her blue skill card, which has 9 initiative, 5 defense, and 3 movement on it. And it says move a unit or a token not adjacent to you and in radius up to 1 space without moving it away from you or closer. So actually, that does not help with the red card.
No,
that was an amazing transition, but it was not.
Yeah, it was a good attempt.
It was a good attempt. Yeah. But essentially, the way I think of this is there's sort of a storm going around Wasp, and sort of orbiting her.
Right.
And she'll pick up one piece and move it along the storm line, but it doesn't get any closer or farther away.
Right. It's funny. I actually was thinking that this card, because I also thought that was a good segue, but I was thinking that maybe this was the card that takes a unit that's not adjacent to you and moves it 2 spaces closer and then repeats that. But I think that's a Zargatha card. I think I'm getting that confused with a different hero entirely.
Right.
Okay. This one's I don't know that I've ever felt like I used this in a satisfying way.
I agree. This is a very hard card to use in a satisfying way. I imagine this would combo well with, for instance, oh man, what's the name of the hero? There's a few heroes that lay traps on the board.
Oh.
And if you can, that's a good use for it. But again, that'd be quite situational. But generally, if you're, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the use for this would be.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, you can certainly move someone a space to put them next to your ally for a melee attack or something, right? Like,
sure.
You can envision coordinating with almost any hero that's about to attack with that, but it's such a narrow card because it only has 2 radius and can't affect adjacent to you.
Right.
So it only targets that ring of spaces 2 out from you.
Right.
And then all it does is slides someone a space kind of in that ring.
Yeah.
It's really, really specific.
Yeah, I want to say it feels really weak, but maybe we're just not good enough Wasp players to use it to its maximum effect.
Or both. It did go well. I've played Wasp with, actually I think I was Dodger here, but Wasp and Dodger. This can move minions off of their starting spaces to power up Dodger.
Ooh,
right?
that's a good use.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that's a thing.
Yeah, definitely.
And then her green card is Stop Projectiles. It's a defense card with 4 initiative and 2 movement, but that's only going to matter. Its initiative only matter if you play it for movement. Otherwise, you're playing it when you defend, and it doesn't have a defense value because it says if the attacker is not adjacent to you, block a ranged attack.
There you go, anti-range.
Yeah, that's the anti-range bit.
Yeah.
This is so I'm comparing it, I guess, to Tiger Claw has, I think, Tiger Claw's blue cards, 1 blocks melee and 1 blocks ranged.
That's
and it
right.
doesn't, I think, have that limit of, it blocks a ranged attack if they're not adjacent to you.
Right.
So this seems to me strictly worse.
Maybe, but I feel like the green card is sort of the worst card, so maybe just it being, although this blue card's not great. Well, I was thinking just it being in green is maybe the...
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It could be that the design of the colors have different power levels. Also, just you can't just say oh wow, so Wasp sucks. You have to look at their kit entirely.
Right.
It's fine for them to have strengths and weaknesses relative to each other.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I think this is another one that's maybe if you're playing with like new players, people who don't know Wasp very well, it'll work once, and then people will make sure to either get adjacent to you or attack someone else with their ranged attacks.
Maybe. I mean, it depends. If you're playing against ranged characters, we haven't really played this game with character drafting properly. I'm not sure if you have.
I have not drafted.
Yeah,
no.
But you can imagine someone taking a heavily focused ranged character, and then you can say, okay, I'll take Wasp in response to that draft pick.
That's true.
Something like that might be kind of interesting.
Yeah, if they're at range, that's I guess where Wasp. I mean, yeah, it's tricky. I would say, based on the last two cards, I would say that's where Wasp wants people is 2 spaces away, so that she can move them with her blue, so she can block their projectiles.
I think that's right.
But then her attacks all want them to be adjacent.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll see where the Zags go, because I think we're actually about to check out her other red options here.
Why don't we go into it?
All right, sounds good. So she's got 2 upgrade paths. There's the straight upgrades from Shock, which are Electrocute and Electroblast, so we'll cover those first. Electrocute is 9 initiative, 6 defense, 4 movement, and 5 attack with a 2 radius. And it says, target a unit adjacent to you before the attack up to 1 enemy hero in radius except the target discards a card, if able. So essentially what that does is it expands the radius for her discard effect to be enemies that are within 2 of her instead of just next to her.
Yeah, Shock is not printed with radius 1, but it works like a radius 1 card, right?
Exactly.
So that's a big upgrade.
Right. And that would come with a defense upgrade.
Okay.
And then we have Electroblast, which is the level 3, which says it's 9 initiative, 7 defense, 4 movement, 6 attack, so 1 up, still 2 radius. Right. And the difference here is, whereas Electrocute said discards a card if able, Electroblast says discards a card or is defeated.
Right, which is always a pretty big difference.
Yeah, huge difference. So that's sort of the straight upgrade path here. Should we talk about these, or should we talk about the Zags?
No, let's. I mean, I guess we can touch on those a little bit. I just think that this is, if you want to, and maybe we'll see as we look at the other options that there are kind of 2. I think it was with Brogan in particular that we could see 2 really clear paths kind of in our minds as we read the cards.
Yeah.
So this goes great with the with a path that really revolves on keeping your enemies exactly 2 spaces away. Right, because this lets you take out a minion and another hero discards a card within radius 2, and all of a sudden that synergizes with stopping projectiles and with lift up.
Sure.
All that stuff. So I guess that's my thought there, is that all of a sudden the kit makes more sense, whereas Shock, it was like, why would I want a character that cares about both adjacent and distant enemies?
Right. I would say also, because both of these come with defense upgrades, this is sort of more of an in the mix build where you're closer to heroes, you can't do range attack, you need higher defense, and that's sort of reflected here.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Right. Whereas the next 2, if we're ready for them,
sure,
are going to be ranged upgrades. So we've got Charged Boomerang, which is a 9 initiative, 3 defense, 4 movement. It's a 3 attack within a range of 3, and it says target a unit in range not in a straight line. Thunder Boomerang, the level 3 upgrade, is 9 initiative, 4 defense, 4 movement, so a little more defense. 4 attack instead of 3. And it says target a unit in range not in a straight line. If you defeat an enemy hero, may repeat once. And then these come with initiative and movement upgrades.
I think those are the more exciting upgrades.
They're certainly more interesting. I think actually Electroblast is really strong, but if you can get a hero kill and then kill another minion or make another hero discard a card with Thunder Boomerang, that's very strong. And you've got the extra movement to get into the appropriate position, because it's interesting that you can't be in a straight line with your opponents.
Yeah, overall, I like the design of the boomerang. Like, I think it's flavorfully for a boomerang. Like, it's got a curve and stuff. And then I like how different not in a straight line feels from. There's a lot of cards that care about straight lines. But I ultimately usually don't feel like these cards are very good. Right? Like, it's just it's difficult to. So these are range attacks because they have to not be in a straight line. They never work adjacent.
That's right.
Right. If an enemy hero is adjacent to you and they know this is your red card, they feel safe from your red card.
Right.
And then even if they're not adjacent to you, right, like 2 spaces away, half of the hexes 2 spaces away from you are safe from you. And then if they're 3 spaces away, then you have some more. Then it's more likely that you're going to be able to hit them. But
right.
Yeah, I find this pretty tricky.
Yeah, it can be hard to get this off, but I imagine in a scrum where everyone's, there's a lot of minions and heroes around, it's probably easy to get in a position where you have 1 or 2 options.
Yeah.
If you're going to fire this off. But yeah, I think it seems weaker than these Electroblast cards. I'm not sure.
I do think that this is maybe better if you're trying to win by pushing the minions, because you can stand in one place and with 3 range you'll usually have several minions, and you're threatening the enemy heroes in a way that they at least have to play around standing, try to stand in a straight line of you.
Maybe, but there's so much value in getting 2 attacks off by defeating an enemy hero with this 3-level boomerang that I don't think you really want to forego that.
I feel like that text is kind of a trap. I don't think that text is nearly as good as it sounds. If you're defeating a hero with your level 3 card, they're losing at least 2 hearts right there, right?
Right.
Maybe quite possibly 3 hearts.
Okay.
To where when you're defeating a hero at that point, you're so close to winning that, like, who cares about almost anything that it could say after you defeat a hero.
Interesting.
That's my take on it, is like a lot of the time, if this defeats a hero, the game ends before you resolve the second part of that sentence.
Yeah, that's valuable perspective. I guess the only other comment I have on these is, like you said, there's a lot of straight line card effects. Particularly, you were saying you just played Cutter.
Yes.
Cutter needs you to be in a straight line, and so if you want to avoid being in a straight line anyway, maybe these are slightly better upgrades.
That's a good point. Yeah, draft Wasp against those straight line focused heroes.
Right, and then upgrade this path.
That's clever. Yeah, I like that. Moving into the blue cards, let's see. So we looked at Lift Up, and the upgrades to that or in that same line, are Control Gravity and Center of Mass. So Control Gravity is a 10 initiative, 5 defense, 3 movement blue card. It's skill area. Move a unit or token not adjacent to you and in radius up to 1 space without moving it away from you or closer to you. May repeat once.
Okay.
And then Center of Mass just has 1 more defense than Control Gravity, and says move a unit or token not adjacent to you and in radius up to 1 space without moving it away from you or closer to you. May repeat up to 2 times. And both of these come with attack upgrades as the item from the other cards. These don't really sell me much more on this ability.
I don't know. I feel like 3 moves around the circle could make a big difference, especially if you have the boomerang. If you need to move someone out of, a straight line with you, maybe that's an effect that you would care about doing that with.
Right.
But then they have to stay still for the next turn. I don't know.
Yeah. It's like that's the tricky thing with any. I almost part of me, I don't know. Part of me likes slower cards that can move other players around, because then you can play that slow card and set something up and then play your fast gold card or something and attack them.
Yeah, totally.
This is a fast, at 10 initiative, this is a fast card, which means that, if they play a card with a boot on it, they can just be like, well, I'm out of here.
Right. And when you add to that static barrier is also just this turn effect. Because I was thinking if you have the barrier, you keep them contained, and then you rotate them to the back of the barrier or something with your rotation effects. That would be kind of cool, but you can't do that.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Although actually, no, it does, because if you had the barrier, they can't escape, right, on that turn. Then before they can act on their next turn, assuming that your 10 initiative card goes first, you rotate them to the back of your barrier, or where your barrier was, effectively.
Sure.
Right? And then you're costing them even more movement to get further ahead. Maybe that's the use case? I don't know.
And actually you're holding Lift Up, right? So tell me if it's the same, but one thing that occurred to me reading these cards that we didn't talk about is that it's move any unit or token. So it's not just enemies.
That's right.
Right? So this can also be used to, if the enemy is not in that 2 space ring, but the ally that wants to melee attack them this can slide your friendly hero 2 spaces over to attack them.
That's a good point.
Or it could take your own minion and take it away from the player who has played an attack clearly intended to kill that minion.
Right.
Right? So it's still like the limitations to what you can target and where you can move it is still hefty, but I'm actually a little more on board now that I've thought of all those use cases when you can even move friendly things.
Yeah. I wonder if, and I'm fairly sure it doesn't work this way, but if you had a trap token and you moved it to, does it say to an empty hex? It must.
It does not say an empty hex.
Can you just like take a grenade token and swing it into a hero that's in that? Because if you can do that, that's cool.
Oh, that is cool. Take a token,
move it into a space that's occupied by an enemy hero.
And then if it's something that happens when they step on it, it explodes.
I don't know if it works that way. It probably doesn't.
That's something to check,
cool,
I guess. That would be really cool.
That would be really cool.
Easy to
check
play
the
around,
comments.
though.
We'll put a comment in the description about whether or not that works.
I hope that works now. I don't think that's overpowered. Like, the enemy just has to play around that by not being in a 2 radius ring from Wasp with that token. Like, it's not that hard to play.
Totally.
To make that not a possibility.
Right. And there are some really important tokens for various characters, like Wook, who's a level 3-star character, puts out these trees that are significant, you know, like if you can move the tree around. Maybe that's its main use, is like with tokens instead of...
It could be, yeah. And there's, the name escapes me, but I was looking at it, there's a character that lays down 2 or 3 traps, one of which is
that's the one I'm thinking
that's,
of.
the grenade,
Monk, but I can't think of what his name is.
Yeah, so that's true. It's true. This is a 1-star character that gets even more interesting when paired with some of those things that some of the higher complexity characters that put things on the map.
Yeah, maybe we could be totally wrong. Who knows? All right,
that's never happened before.
It's never happened before. Yeah. Why would we start being wrong now? Yeah.
And then her other blue options are Kinetic Repulse and Kinetic Blast. So Kinetic Repulse is a tier 2. 10 initiative, 5 defense, 3 movement, blue skill. This says push every enemy unit adjacent to you 2 spaces. Each enemy hero that was stopped by an obstacle discards a card if able. And then a Kinetic Blast has 1 more defense than Kinetic Repulse did, and it says push every enemy unit adjacent to you 3 spaces. Each enemy hero that was stopped by an obstacle discards a card if able. And then the Kinetic Repulse would give you a defense upgrade when you take it, and Kinetic Blast would upgrade your range. So upgrading your range with the boomerang makes it a lot better.
Right, and you're shoving everything away from you, and then you've got the boomerang to hit it afterwards.
Yes.
That's a good combo.
Yes.
Plus you can discard a card off a hero if they run into an obstacle or whatever the case may be.
So we are sort of seeing like a close range versus long range build like kind of paths forming here, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think these cards are great, actually.
Those seem really strong, yeah. I really like the idea of shoving an enemy into an obstacle, discarding a card off them, and then you still have 2 attacks to hit them with.
Yep. Yes, since getting a discard on your non-red, non-gold card is always really valuable.
Yeah.
I love the flavor of it, that you're just like doing this blast and everyone flies in different directions and hits obstacles.
Yeah.
And then, I've actually seen this, like, I don't think it's that hard to set up, especially when you are on Kinetic Blast and pushing things 3 spaces.
Right.
Like, I don't know how often you think about this on a turn-by-turn basis, but you almost always have an obstacle 3 spaces in, like, any given direction. Like, the board is not so wide open that you can often get pushed 3 spaces and not hit an obstacle.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. And on top of all of that, there's this element of... I've totally lost my thought here. The element is like the ranged characters around you who need to come close to you to attack, right? So maybe that's the build you want to go for if they're drafting like Brogan, or not Brogan actually, but if they're drafting Tiger Claw or someone else who needs to be a melee character,
right?
You can just say, okay, I'm going to go this other route. I'm going to shove you away from me.
Yeah.
Now you can't really get as close.
Again, I almost wonder if this would be better if it was slower initiative, so that it could deter enemies from moving in. Like on the turn when they would try to move in, you could just be like, well, you move in, I'm going to go after you and push you out. And then if they don't, and then when they don't move in, you've got a 3 boot card that you just played.
I think I like it at the higher initiative.
Really?
Yeah, because it's so effective against red cards. Someone's going to play their red attack, they're next to you, they've set it up.
True.
We're going in front, and you're going to push them away.
It's just bad against gold cards.
It's bad against gold cards. Yeah, that's true. But it's so good against red cards. I don't know.
Well, give us some more green cards.
Okay, sure. So, the straight upgrades from What was the first green card called?
It is Stop Projectiles.
Okay, we've got Deflect Projectiles and Reflect Projectiles, so you can imagine what those do. Deflect is the level 2. It's 3 initiative, 2 boots, and it says, if the attacker is not adjacent to you, block a ranged attack. If you do, the attacker discards a card if able. And then Reflect Projectiles, the level 3. If the attacker is not adjacent to you, block a ranged attack. If you do, the attacker discards a card if able. Plus, this turn, you are immune to ranged attacks of heroes not adjacent to you.
That's pretty cool. Reflect Projectiles. Well, yeah. I was going to say, its initiative is so slow, but that doesn't matter because you're playing this
You're
as
playing
a
it for the defense.
Yeah.
And these cards would come with initiative bonuses as well, each of them.
Oh, that's funny. I also noticed that they're slower. It's a rare upgrade that the initiative on these is slower than their base card. Shouldn't matter that much because you're mostly playing it as a defense instead of, I guess it would only be for its boots that it's slower.
And oftentimes when you're playing your green cards for the boots, you want to go last. You want to see where everyone else ends up and then get into position to play your gold card the next round.
And I mean, I think it's probably been a through line in some of my commentary of this video, but I feel like that's been a pretty recent development in my skill in this game, is understanding that faster is not always better.
Right.
And a lot of the time, like maybe not the majority of the time, but plenty of the time, you're like, oh, I'd rather go slow. So because I don't think I need to prevent an attack here, so I would rather see what they do and then react.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I think on that level, making this an even slower movement sounds fine to me.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting combination with actually the blue pulse,
The repulse and blast
effects, because if they're next to you, you can shove them away and they'll have to discard a card. And if they're not next to you and ranged attacking you, you can deflect the projectiles
and they discard a card.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no real way to get around attacking you without being forced to discard a card.
And this is now, with both of those upgrades, that is 2 non-attack discards.
Right. And then probably just your gold card's enough.
Then you just throw, or if you've taken these, I think you've probably also taken the boomerang, and then you just boomerang them and they're gone.
And they're gone. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a cool upgrade path. The alternative is telekinesis and mass telekinesis. 3 initiative, 3 defense, and 2 move on telekinesis. It says, place a unit or a token in range which is not in a straight line into a space adjacent to you. So this is probably better. Well, we shouldn't come in. And then this comes with an attack upgrade. And then mass telekinesis here has 1 more defense, and it says place a unit in, or a token in range which is not in a straight line into a space adjacent to you, may repeat once. So you got to do it twice. And that one comes with a radius increase.
I think that these are great. Actually, I think all of her green cards are all pretty good.
Yeah, this is especially good for turning on the red effects from the Electroblast Electrocute line.
Yeah.
Especially if you can bring in 2 heroes, then attack one and discard a card from the other.
Or setting up Kinetic Blast, Kinetic Repulse. I was just saying that a slow card that sets up a fast attack is great, and that's exactly what this is. Because Kinetic Repulse and Blast are 10 initiative. They're not an attack per se, but they do cause a discard.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The other thing that, and actually when I've taken these, what the best plays that I've made with these is it can move any like friendly units and things too, and I've used it to save my allies from attacks.
That's great.
And I guess this is so slow that maybe it was like I pulled someone out when the opponents just spent their turn flanking them or something, right? Like it didn't save them from an attack that was played that turn because that would have gone faster.
Right.
But it clearly got them out of a sticky situation.
Sure.
And I think that's a really powerful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, and then the ranged upgrade, which makes this work at 4 space, anything within 4 range comes from it's when you take that Kinetic Blast.
Nice.
So
you can bring in 2 heroes. You can position them exactly so you'll be discarding 2 cards and you play that next turn.
Yep.
Especially if they've already used their gold card.
Exactly.
That's an awesome combo. That's really cool.
It is.
It feels like that Kinetic Blast line you sort of want, in our opinion, so far it seems at least, regardless of which build you're going for. Like, we prefer those cards to the control gravity cards.
Yes. Yeah. I do think that there is a build here that we've seen that is like you want them at 2 spaces build, and you just mess with them at 2 spaces away if you build that way. But it doesn't seem as good to me.
Or it just seems harder. It seems harder to pull off. Yeah.
Yep. That just leaves the ultimate.
Let's hear
and
it.
I think last time we recorded a couple of these videos, we were saying we had never seen an ultimate used. I've seen 3 ultimates happen now. Since
That's
then.
amazing.
Yeah. Well, one time it was me, and then once it was my opponent, and then the time that I got my ultimate, so did my teammate.
Oh, very cool.
I think when I was new, I don't know, it could be, it's small sample size. I've played Guards of Atlantis maybe 10 times now.
Okay.
But I feel like games are going longer now as we're getting a little bit better at it.
Yeah.
It was often like, it was only wave 3 when one team died of hero deaths. And
right.
now I'm seeing more games go to wave 4 and 5, and so I'm seeing more ultimates.
That makes sense.
Happen. Yeah.
Especially as you're playing more with the same people and everyone's getting to a higher skill level,
For sure. So this is Thunder and Lightning. It's an ultimate, which just means it doesn't have any of the stats. It's passive. It's just always on once you earn it. After you perform a basic skill, one enemy hero in play discards a card if able. Period.
Okay.
It's funny that this is written. This is written in a way that gives the game the opportunity to put out an expansion that gives alternate basic skills or something, right? But this only works with her silver card.
Right.
That's the basic skill.
Right.
So it doesn't mention the card by name. It says a basic skill in such a way that, maybe someday Wasp will have an alternative basic skill.
That seems unlikely to me.
Yeah, kind of.
Maybe,
But I don't know. It seems like it's future-proof language. But anyway, so it just upgrades her Static Barrier, which we were saying is a card you likely want to play most rounds,
right,
to just also cause a discard.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you can build so that all 5 of your cards do discards.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
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 Who gets to choose when this comes on? Is it? I assume the enemies choose one of them will discard a card. It's not your choice.
I think you choose.
Oh, you choose. Okay.
I think so. Right? Like when
one enemy discards a card if able. Yeah, I guess you would get to choose that.
Yeah, it is. I agree. The templating of the card is a little. I'm trying to find another. Well, yeah, like Shock says up to 1 enemy hero adjacent to you, and that's not the enemy's choice.
That's true. That's
right?
your choice. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so you got to choose an enemy to discard a card. That's really strong.
It doesn't use really clear Match the Gathering. It doesn't say target hero or anything like that. But this is just this barely even changes her play style at all. Some of the ultimates, it's they're really brain bending, and that it's like, when you play your card of this color, copy the card you played before it. That type of thing that makes you really have to think as you play. Right. This just makes you do the thing you're already doing and also get a discard, I feel like.
The only thing that it sort of changes is it wants you to play your silver card earlier in the round.
Good point. Yeah, since this won't defeat a hero.
Right. So you need to discard, you need to make them discard a card before you attack them. Yeah,
that is a great point. Okay, well that's Wasp.
That was great.
We've done it all.
Yeah.
I like Wasp a lot.
Yeah, Wasp seems great. It seems like a very good early hero to get into because it's middling in all these stats.
Yep.
So you can sort of build her how you want. She can do attacks, she can do pushes. Although after our discussion here, it seems like maybe she's targeted towards hero kills rather than pushing, even though her pusher stat is the same as her, a little lower than her brawler stat, I guess. But
no, I agree, and this is part of why I sometimes raise an eyebrow at these stats once you look at what their actual tools are. Really, she's a middle of the road pusher. She has almost nothing that she certainly doesn't have anything that can kill 2 minions.
Right.
Even at her upgraded cards, I didn't see anything that could kill 2 minions.
Yeah.
And I guess her, I was saying, her boomerang's good at taking out minions just because she'll have so many potential targets and it's long range. But other than that, nothing screams you should be using these cards on minions.
Yeah, it really seems there's a huge emphasis on the discard effects. That's her biggest asset.
Yeah, and then I think the anti-skill, even though it's only really on one card, her gold card, I think it ends up being a pretty big part of the play experience.
That sounds right.
Even if it whiffs a lot of the time because you play your gold and they don't play a skill.
Right.
When it does cancel a skill, sometimes it can ruin their whole round.
Right. Yeah. And it's always the threat they have to play around it. That's all you need.
Yep, for sure. Cool. Well, that's Wasp the Warmaiden. Again, let us know your thoughts, and especially all the times Jordan was wrong.
Yes, please. Honestly, I'm trying to learn. So,
we'll be back with. We didn't. I can't tease who we played next or who we'll talk about next because we haven't decided.
That's right.
Do we want to decide right now?
All right, we'll say it on 3.
1, 2, 3.
Dodger.
Arian.
Damn.
That would have been pretty good.
That would have been really cool. All right, well, we'll see.
right.
It'll be one of those.
Well, join us soon, and when we talk about Dodger or Arian. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
See you soon. Be optimal.